Hey, how's it going, guys? So for today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about my snake plants. And well, I guess first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Roberto, and I started collecting snake plants in 2019. I think towards mid-2019 is when I first started, I guess, getting into plants. And I guess just through this past year, 2020, with COVID and everything, I didn't really go out as much, or I guess do any of my other hobbies that I normally would do. So being home most of the time, I just kind of started buying plants, and I think I'm pretty close to 30 plants now. So they're not all snake plants, but for the most part they are. And I just wanted to share most of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the year or couple of years, and hopefully this can help most of the new people that are starting to get into snake plants. They're a very easy plant to take care of, and they're pretty bulletproof in my opinion. I consider myself a beginner when it comes to plants. I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. You know, again, these are just my tips and tricks. So I hope you guys like it, and let's move forward. So first thing I want to talk about is cleaning. It's something that I wasn't really thinking about, and it's not something really mandatory that you need to do with your plants, but a lot of these plants are stationary. Yeah, they will move a little bit here and there, especially with the sun, but they tend to collect dust. So this is my first snake plant, Trifasciata. So I'm going to be butchering half the names of these plants, so guys bear with me, but this is my first plant, and I got this set of brushes at Walmart for $4. I would recommend maybe getting bigger brushes if you have bigger plants. So one thing is just dust them off. I do it about, I guess, every 3 to 4 months, or whenever I remember to do it. These things do collect dust, so why not clean them off? The dust, in my opinion, or in my experience, hasn't affected the growth of these plants. But again, it is nice to have these things clean. Another thing that I've read online too is to use alcohol wipes, or just rubbing alcohol with a Q-tip. And I've noticed something with most of my plants. I am seeing a lot of little kind of like patches and scales on them. It's really hard for me to explain. I'll put some B-roll or a picture of what I'm trying to explain up on the video. But anyways, people have told me that if I use alcohol wipes or rubbing alcohol, and just rub it on the leaf, that it'll go away. They don't really help that much. I'm gonna try and keep doing it, see if maybe a couple wipes will get rid of these little things that I'm talking about. But I don't think they're eggs. They don't seem to look like eggs, but I might just be a little paranoid, and this might just be normal with snake plants. So if you guys know if it's common or not, leave a comment down below, let me know. I think that's it for cleaning. So up next is going to be watering. So this was my first snake plant, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but the first time I got this thing, I went 3 months without watering it. So it's still alive. I don't recommend going 3 months without watering it, especially if you want new growth. Normally what I'm doing as far as watering goes is I water these plants about every 2 to 3 weeks, maybe once a month. Now that it's getting colder where I'm currently living at, I'm gonna probably drop back to maybe once a month as far as watering goes, just because the soil isn't, I feel like the soil retains more water during winter than it does in the summer. So gonna back off on watering now for these guys, and then typically in the summer I tend to water them about every 2 to 3 weeks. If you're a beginner, you're definitely going to need one of these things. This is a soil moisture tester. Now, most of my plants are covered in pebbles. I'll talk about that later on in this video, but usually you just stick this in the soil. This tells you how much moisture is in the soil, so you can pretty much gauge on that, when you need to water it. Before I was using pebbles, I would wait for this to be all the way dry. So the way I would use this is I would stick this pretty close to the roots in 3 areas of the pot. So maybe one here, another one here, and here. And I'd try and stick it close to the roots just to see how dry the roots were. That's the main thing I really worry about, is root rot. That is a thing with these snake plants, and that did happen to one of my snake plants. So keep in mind that you don't want to water these things too much because root rot is a thing. So be careful with that. I suggest buying one of these at your local plant store. I think they sell these at Lowe's or Home Depot as well for about $8 to $10. So really good investment. I've used it a lot. I've now gotten to the point where I can kind of look at my plant and gauge whether it needs to be watered or not, hence the pebbles. But again, I'll talk about the pebbles later on in the video. And I guess that's it for watering. The next thing I'll be talking about is sunlight. This poor plant, when I first got it, I was living in a house and my room was in a basement. So it was pitch black, there was no sunlight coming through the windows, and I had this guy just chilling in my room. It's kind of obvious to say this, but the more light you give a plant, the more growth you'll get out of a plant. So this guy didn't grow that much the first, I guess, 5-6 months that I had it until I moved out to where I'm currently at. So obviously this guy's grown. He grew a whole new leaf just fairly recently, so pretty happy about that. I had to chop off this leaf because I think he was getting an infection, so just chopped it off, but nonetheless it's still growing, it's still putting out new leaves. But one thing is sunlight. So you can put them in direct light. I've done it before. All of my snake plants I've put in direct light. They do pretty good in direct light. Their leaves don't get burned. You kind of put them anywhere around the house, whether it be a dark room, whether it be the kitchen, the dining room, the living room. It doesn't matter. As long as these guys get some type of light, they'll do pretty good. Alright guys, so next thing I wanted to talk about is soil. I don't see a lot of people really talking about soil online either. I just got this from my local plant store. I just wanted to let you guys know that any succulent soil is going to do pretty good for your snake plants. I have no correlation or affiliation with this company. This is just what I picked up at the store. I've been using it with most of my snake plants as well, and they're doing pretty good. They seem to like it. So succulent soil, any type is okay. I do use perlite as well. I don't have any with me at the moment, but I do have perlite. The water drains easier in the soil if you use a bit more perlite, so that's why I use perlite. I like it. It hasn't affected my plants to my knowledge. But yeah, soil, any type of succulent soil will do. And if you want to use perlite, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Most of these come pre-mixed as well, so they will come with a bit of perlite, just not as much as I like to use. So that's it for soil. So the next thing I want to talk about is GNATS. So I think if you have anywhere from 1 plant to 5 plant, 5 plants, you're not going to see a lot of gnats. I think it's more once you get more plants that you'll start seeing them. For example, I had about 10 plants and I started seeing just little tiny bugs flying around the room here and there, and I just kind of thought it was nothing. But once I started getting up in the numbers to 20 plants, 30 plants, then I started seeing a significant growth in gnats. So these are my tips and tricks and what I've read on getting rid of gnats. So hope this helps. If you guys have any other tips or tricks on getting rid of gnats, please leave it down in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. I do have a couple more plants coming in that are significantly more expensive than snake plants, and I don't want my gnats to eat those plants. So I'm doing everything I can at the moment to get rid of as many gnats as I can. And I'll show some B-roll of the sticky traps that I'm using and just how much gnats it's caught. It's pretty gross, but these traps do work. So one of the remedies that I've been using to get rid of gnats in this house is sticky traps. So these are pretty cool. I like these. I read online that if you want to get rid of gnats or just small bugs or just any pests, you can use sticky traps. These are pretty good. Really like them. But some of these come with, I guess, these little stakes that you put in the soil. I've been using these paper clips. It's been holding these up really well. These really big sticky traps are too heavy for these stakes to carry up. That, and I'm using pebbles in my soil, so I can't really just stake these with the pebbles over the soil. Sticky traps, great investment. I've been using paper clips to hold them up. It's been working pretty well. So yeah, that's one of the remedies I've been using to get rid of gnats. So on to the next remedy for gnats is neem oil. Usually what I do with neem oil is I spread them on the leaves and I spray the soil as well so that the gnats don't lay more eggs in the soil. Pretty cool stuff. It's kind of a weird texture when you spray it on soil. It's kind of a waxy texture that I've noticed, so it's kind of cool. I get how it would work against gnats. Haven't really noticed as much, I guess, progress with neem oil as I have with sticky traps, mainly because I can see the sticky traps catching all the gnats. Again, I'll roll some B-roll footage of all the sticky traps that I have caught a lot of gnats. It's pretty nasty, pretty disgusting, but it works. I really like this. I'd almost try this solution first versus the neem oil, but I mean, it's okay. Go for it. If you want to try it, try it. This bottle was $20. Might be more or less by the time I put this video up, but neem oil is an option. Again, if you don't have that many gnats, if you just see a couple, around the house, I'd go with sticky traps first, and if that doesn't seem to work, then next step would be neem oil. So there's that, and then the last remedy I have for getting rid of gnats is pebbles. As you can tell, this plant has a bunch of pebbles over the soil of it. I guess and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way gnats work are they lay eggs in the soil, which creates more babies and more gnats. So from what I've read online, pebbles, if you put pebbles over soil, then that helps prevent gnats lay eggs in the soil. So I think that has been working. I've only been using this method for the past couple weeks. So It's hit or miss, it's in the air. One thing that I don't like about pebbles, especially if you're a beginner, is that it is really hard to tell when the plant needs to be watered because there's pebbles over the soil. So you can't just stick your finger in the soil and, see if it needs watering or not. Or usually I could look at the soil in a plant and kind of gauge whether it needs water or not. Pebbles kind of eliminate that for the most part. So I'd say once you get to know your plants and you kind of get to know when they need water, then I would go to this solution, just because again it's really hard to gauge when a plant needs water because you can't see the soil. And I got this at my local plant store. This is from Nick's Garden here in Colorado, and they named this terrarium accent pebbles, pea pebbles. I went with this kind of smaller pebbles as well, just because it covers the soil pretty well. I don't know if you guys have seen how small gnats can get, but they're really tiny pests, and I feel like this is the best type of I think the smaller the pebbles go, the more likely you are to cover the soil, which is good, so they don't lay any more eggs. So terrarium pebbles, great. Again, if you're not too familiar with the watering schedule of your plants, I'd kind of make this kind of a last resort until you kind of learn more about your plant and when it needs to be watered. So that's it for gnats. The last thing I'm going to be talking about is propagation. So I've tried to propagate a couple of plants before in the past. So there's two types of propagations that I've learned so far. First is going to be water propagation. Second is going to be soil propagation. Pretty self-explanatory. Water propagation, you pretty much cut a leaf and put it in a glass of water. And I've had bad luck with water propagation. I'll try and put some pictures up as well, but every time I try to water propagate a snake plant, the bottom of the leaf tends to get really mushy, and it's happened every single time. I don't know what it is. I use the tap water here to water all my plants. So I was talking to a friend on Instagram, and she said that maybe I need to use distilled water or some, I guess, better type of water to do water propagations. So leave a comment down below if you have any tips on water propagating. That would be great. But yeah, that's my only downfall with water propagation. I'm not a big fan of it just because I haven't had any success with it. I've had zero success with water propagating, and that's pretty much it for water propagating. Next is going to be soil propagating. In my opinion, it's the easiest of the two. It's pretty straightforward, and I've had luck with it. Cut a leaf, just stick it in a pot full of soil, water it like a normal snake plant, and that's it. I cut one of the leaves off a snake plant from work. I got tired of water propagating, so I got a pot. I got a small 4-inch pot, filled it up with soil, stuck that leaf in there, watered it, and I said, screw it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think it's been about, I'd say it's been at least 8 months now, maybe a little less time than that, but it's finally giving me a pup or a baby. It's giving me a small leaf, but very excited about that. I have done it a couple other times with other variations of snake plants, and soil propagating is the way for me. So that's pretty much it, guys. One last thing I almost forgot to mention. Neem oil, I know I already talked about it, but be very careful and mindful when and where you spray the plants and where you put the plants as well. Earlier I talked about snake plants doing great in direct sunlight, and they do, but keep in mind if you put neem oil, or I guess any type of oil to get rid of pests, do not put them in sunlight. And I will tell you why. I don't know why I didn't think about this when I did it. But so I sprayed my plants like normal. I sprayed the leaf, I sprayed the soil. This is one of my plants, and I sprayed it with neem oil, and like an idiot I put it in direct sunlight. And basically this is oil, guys, so once it gets hot, once it gets warm, it's gonna burn to an extent. And that's exactly what it does with this plant and my golden flame. So I'll put some B-roll again in the video so I can show you guys closer, but it pretty much burnt this leaf, and I got a little bit of burning on this leaf and this leaf, so I was pretty pissed about it. Again, I didn't think about it when I was doing it, but yeah, it definitely burned the leaves. So if you do put neem oil on your plants, please do not put them in direct sunlight. Usually what I do is I put neem oil, I wipe off the excess neem oil, but regardless, I'd leave it sitting in not direct sunlight for, I'd say, at least a couple days, maybe a week. But yeah, that's one thing I do regret. I messed up these two plants that I really love. I'm obviously going to keep them. I'm going to hope that they heal back. I don't really know what to do in this situation when leaves have been burned by neem oil. So again, it's not neem oil's fault. It's my fault for being dumb and not thinking about it ahead of time. And I think that should be it, guys. So I apologize if this is a really long video, but I just wanted to give out as much knowledge as I can, especially to new snake plant owners or beginners. You know, I still consider myself a beginner because I make screw ups like that. But yeah, if you guys have any tips and tricks on snake plants, or any insight on them, or if you guys have any questions, please leave a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and maybe subscribe if you want to as well. And yeah, if you have any questions, again, leave them in the comment section and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And with that being said, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.